The sky above Colony 7 was always gray. Smoke from old factories painted the air thick, and the streets were full of noise, shouting traders, buzzing hover carts, and machines that never stopped. In the middle of this chaos, a girl sat in. Silence. She was not human. She was small, thin, and covered in dust. Her hair was long and messy, a strange shade between silver and black. Her eyes were bright violet, but they stayed low. Never looking up, she sat curled inside a metal cage, like an old, forgotten pet. Around her were dirty scraps of food, empty bottles, and broken tools. People passed her every day. No one stopped. Some threw bits of food at her. Some laughed. Others looked away in disgust. "Filthy creature," one man muttered. "Should have been thrown out with the rest of the alien trash," said another. The girl never spoke, never cried. She just sat, hugging her knees, holding a small cloth in her hands. The cloth was torn and faded, but she held it like it was something precious. Then, one day, a man named Captain Elias Gray walked by. Elias wasn't like the others. He was older, in his 40s, with a strong build and a face full of old scars. His hair was short and peppered with gray. He wore a worn leather jacket with a patch that read Earth Alliance veteran. He wasn't looking for trouble, just parts. His ship needed repairs, and this junkyard was the cheapest place to find them. But as he passed the row of cages behind the scrap shop, something caught his eye. A child. No, not a child. An alien. He paused. She looked up. Their eyes met. Elias froze. He didn't know why, but something hit him hard in the chest. That look, tired, sad, and full of something more. It wasn't the look of an animal. It was the look of someone who had seen too much pain. He took a step closer. The girl backed up in fear. "Don't touch her," said a voice. It was the junkyard trader, a fat man with oily skin and a half-broken cyber eye. "She's not for sale. She's just leftover cargo. One of them royal blood brats, I think. Nobody claimed her. I kept her for fun. People like seeing freaks." Elias clenched his jaw. "You keep her in a cage. She don't speak, don't eat proper, just growls and stares, like an animal. How long's she been here? 3 months, maybe 4. I dunno. She's not dying yet, so I figured I'd keep her, unless you want her for scrap. I'll sell her bones cheap." Elias stepped forward again. The girl looked up, her hands shaking, body thin as paper. Then she opened her mouth, and in a soft, clear voice, she said just one word, "Please." Elias froze. It wasn't just the word. It was how she said it, like a queen in chains, like someone born to be served, now begging for kindness. He looked at the trader. "I'm taking her." "You deaf?" I said she ain't for sale. But Elias was already pulling out his blaster. The trader backed off, hands in the air. "Fine, fine. Crazy old war dog. Take her, then. She ain't worth the trouble anyway." Elias opened the cage slowly. The girl flinched, but didn't move. He bent down and held out his hand. "You're safe now." She didn't speak, didn't move, but after a few seconds, she placed her tiny hand in his. He lifted her into his arms. She was light, to light, bones and skin died as they walked away. The junkyard behind them full of shouting and noise. Elias whispered something to her. "I don't know who you are, but I promise I'll find out." The girl closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt warm. Safe. And far, far away from the cage, but neither of them knew. They had just started a journey that would shake the galaxy. The escapee shipyard was silent that night. Heavy fog rolled across the metal platforms, wrapping around cargo containers like ghosts. Dock workers had all gone home, and the only sound was the hum of Elias's ship engine warming up deep inside Hangar 12. Elias walked fast, holding the alien girl close to his chest. She didn't struggle. She didn't cry, but her small hands clutched his jacket tightly, like she was afraid he might disappear too. Almost there, he whispered. He didn't know why he was doing this. He wasn't a hero. Not anymore. He had left the war behind years ago, after losing too many friends and watching too many innocents suffer. Now he just flew old cargo across systems no one cared about. But this girl, she had stirred something inside him, something he thought. He had buried Doc. She had said just one word, please. And somehow, that had been enough. But danger was already chasing them, inside the junkyard office. The trader was talking fast into a secure communicator. His face was pale. Yes, sir, she's gone. That Earthman took her Elias Gray, I think. Yes, the war vet. He pulled a blaster on me. No, I didn't fight him. Are you crazy? You want to end up like the others. There was a pause. Then the voice on the other side said only 2 words. Find them. Back in the hangar, Elias opened the ship's side panel and stepped into the hallway. The old cargo freighter was rusted in places, and half the lights flickered, but it had never failed him. He placed the girl gently on a soft blanket in the engine room, the warmest place on board. Wait here, he said softly. I'll get you something to eat. She didn't reply, just stared at the engine lights, wide-eyed, like she had never seen anything so beautiful. Elias watched her for a moment. She wasn't just quiet. She was trained not to speak, not to ask Dot not to cry. He felt a chill. What kind of people treat a child like that? Elias walked to the front of the ship and turned on the navigation panel. But just as he reached for the throttle, a red light flashed. Alert! Inbound Guardian drones detected. His heart stopped. They were already here. Outside, 3 dark drones zipped through the fog, scanning the hangar. They were fast, armed, and programmed to shoot anything that moved without permission. Elias didn't have clearance to fly, and if they found her on board, he grabbed the communicator. Mara, wake up. A voice crackled through. What? Captain, what's happening? Emergency liftoff. Now, I need you at the rear guns. What the hell did you do this time? No time to explain. Just move. Back in the engine room. The girl had heard the alarms. She crawled to the door, peeking through the gap. Her body shook, but her eyes were focused. Watching, she knew those drones. They were the same kind that had destroyed her home, the same ones that had chased her through burning fields, the same ones that took her mother away, and now they were back. For her, Elias ran down the hallway and lifted her again. We're flying blind, kid, he muttered. Hope you don't get motion sick. The girl didn't answer, but this time, her hands gripped him tighter than before. Outside, red beams from the drones lit up the fog. Target locked. Elias jumped into the pilot seat and slammed the ignition. The ship roared to life. Metal groaned. Lights flared, and in one giant thrust, they shot up into the black sky. The drones fired. One blast hit the side of the ship. Sparks flew. Shields dropping. Mara shouted. Elias cursed. Divert power from the fridge. I don't care if our milk boils. Just get us out of here. The ship twisted, dodged, dug between floating fuel tanks. The girl, pressed into the co-pilot seat now, gripped the armrest. And then, for the first time, she spoke again, not just 3 words. "They know me." Elias turned. "What?" But she was already shaking her head, eyes full of fear. You don't understand," she whispered. He did now. They weren't chasing him. They were hunting her. Above the clouds, the ship finally broke through to open space. The drones were gone, for now. Mara came to the cockpit, panting. "What is going on? Who is this kid?" Elias didn't answer. He looked at the girl, and slowly, he knelt down in front of her. "You're not just a lost child, are you?" The girl looked down. Then, in a quiet, broken voice, she said the unthinkable. "I am the last of the royal blood." Elias stared at her, stunned. He had just stolen a living piece of history, a secret that could start a war. And now, the whole galaxy might be coming for her. The stars outside the ship flickered like distant candles. Elias stood silently in the small kitchen area of the freighter, hands shaking slightly as he opened a warm food packet. He placed slices of bread, soft protein cubes, and a bowl of fruit onto a tray. He hadn't prepared food for anyone but himself in years, and never for a scared child who claimed to be the last royal of her kind. He walked back to the engine bay where the girl sat quietly. Her knees were pulled to her chest. She hadn't moved since they escaped. He bent down slowly. "Here," he said gently. "Food, real food." The girl stared at the tray, but instead of reaching out, she dropped to the floor. On her hands and knees, Elias watched. Stunned, she sniffed the food like a stray animal. Then she began to eat, fast, messy, chewing without swallowing properly. She grabbed a protein cube with her mouth, no hands, licking crumbs from the tray, like she didn't know what a spoon was. Hey, Elias said softly, kneeling beside her. "It's okay. You don't have to rush." But she didn't stop. She didn't hear him. It was like her body was acting on fear, not hunger. Like, if she didn't eat fast enough, someone might take it away. Someone might beat her. That thought hit Elias like a knife. He reached out slowly and gently touched her arm. She froze, eyes wide, lips shaking. A low growl came from her throat. Elias pulled back. "I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered. For a moment, she just stared at him like she was trying to understand the words. Then she backed into the corner and hugged herself tight, rocking slightly. Elias looked at the food on the tray, half-eaten, covered in drool and crumbs. But that didn't bother him. What bothered him was how she thought she had to act, like a beast. Later, Elias sat in the cockpit, his thoughts spinning. Mara leaned on the console beside him. "She really ate like that?" Mara asked quietly. "Yeah," Elias replied. "Like she's never used a fork. Like she's never been told she matters. She said she's royalty. She said she's the last." Mara frowned. "That can't be true. The royal lines were wiped out during the Purge War." "I know," Elias said, "but what if she survived? What if she's lying?" Elias shook his head. Her eyes. "Mara, I've seen fear before. I've seen soldiers lose everything and crawl through hell. But I've never seen fear like that." Back in the engine bay, the girl touched the tray again, carefully this time. Her fingers ran over the soft bread. Then she picked up a fruit cube With her fingers, she held it close to her face, sniffed it, then took a tiny bite. It was the first time she had eaten like a person. She looked around, confused. There was no one yelling at her, no shock collars, no cages. Just quiet, and the soft hum of a ship moving through stars. She stared at the engine's blue glow, eyes reflecting the light like a mirror, and whispered a word in her own language. Laureled Haya. Double quotes home. Elias returned with a small blanket and a pillow. You'll sleep here tonight, he said. She looked at the blanket like it was something sacred. Elias smiled. You don't need to be afraid anymore. But she didn't reply. She simply curled up on the floor again, not on the soft bed he had made, but right next to the metal wall where the shadows were, because to her, that still felt safer. In the middle of the night, Elias was woken by a sound. Crying. Not loud, just soft sniffles. He walked down the hallway quietly, and there she was, curled into a ball, rocking, whispering something over and over in her own language. Elias sat beside her. He didn't speak. He just placed the blanket over her shoulders and sat there, keeping watch like a guardian she never had, and slowly her crying stopped. She leaned against his arm. And slept. At sunrise, or what passed for sunrise in deep space, the girl finally spoke. My name is Renia. Elias turned. She wasn't growling. She wasn't hiding. She was looking at him. Straight into his eyes. He smiled. I'm Elias. She nodded. Then said something that chilled him to the bone. They made me forget who I was. Elias frowned. Who made you forget? The ones who wear masks, she said. They told me I'm a beast, a curse. They said I must never speak, or remember, or dream. She touched the cloth in her hands. This was my mother's. Elias leaned forward. You're not a curse, Renia. She blinked. You're not an animal. Renia stared at him, unsure if she believed him. But then, with her tiny fingers, she placed the cloth in his hand. I remember one thing, she whispered. Before they took her, she called me something. What did she call you? Renia looked up. She called me Princess. Elias stared. This wasn't just a survivor. This was the lost heir. The stars outside drifted like quiet thoughts. Inside the ship, Elias sat across from the girl, Princess Renia, now wrapped in a blanket, her thin hands gripping a hot mug of broth he prepared for her. She sipped slowly this time, carefully, like she was learning all over again what it meant to eat like a person. He studied her, not her scars, not her strange markings, not her alien skin. He watched how she looked at things with silent wonder, but also deep fear, and underneath it all, something royal, something proud, something that had been crushed but not destroyed. I think I need to know more, Elias finally said. Renia glanced up. About what? About you. About who's chasing you. About why they wanted to erase your name. Renia looked down at the cloth in her lap. Her voice was soft. They were afraid of the name. My family ruled the inner system for 200 years. My mother was queen. My father died in war. Then they came, soldiers with no faces, only black suits and smooth white masks. She closed her eyes. They didn't kill me. They took me somewhere underground, cold metal halls, bright lights. I stopped counting the days. They made me crawl, made me eat scraps. And when I tried to say my name, she touched her throat gently. They shocked me. Elias's fists clenched. Why would they do that to a child? Rena didn't answer, but her eyes said it all. Because power is dangerous, and a child with a royal name is a threat. Mara stormed in from the cockpit, holding a data pad. Captain, you need to see this. She tapped the pad. A holo image opened in the air, a grainy video clip from a colony news station. It showed the junkyard, the cage, Rena. But what froze Elias's blood was the headline: Rare Royal Species Rescued, High-Value Target, Escape with Earth Veteran Elias Gray, and underneath that, Galactic Authority classifies Elias Gray as fugitive. Reward, 10,000 stellar credits. Elias stared. That was fast. Mara nodded. They're already hunting us. Rena's voice broke the silence that always haunt the truth. Later, Elias walked alone to the ship's storage bay. He dug through his old war locker, moving aside weapons and tools until he found what he was looking for. A black box dot. It had no markings, no buttons, just a sleek metal shell. He placed it on the table and called Mara. What is that? She asked. Something from the war, Elias said. Recovered tech. I kept it locked up. Too dangerous. But maybe it can help. He touched the side. A tiny light blinked on. The box opened with a hiss, revealing a folded piece of dark royal cloth and a small crystal chip, glowing faint blue. He inserted the chip into the console. A hologram flickered to life. A woman appeared, tall, strong, beautiful, with long silver hair and eyes identical to Rena's. She spoke in a soft, commanding voice. This message is for the one who finds her, my daughter, my Rena. If you're hearing this, then I am gone. Rena walked in quietly behind them, eyes wide. That's my mother. There are those who will try to erase her, to chain her. But she carries more than blood. She carries the last spark of our world. And one day, that spark must return to the throne. The hologram blinked, then vanished. Rena fell to her knees, tears running silently down her face. Elias stared at the chip. This changes everything. Mara looked nervous. You understand what this means, right? She's not just a survivor. She's a living key. If the rebels or the Dominion get her first, they won't, Elias said, standing tall, because we're going to find the truth, and we're going to make the galaxy listen. But they weren't alone. Thousands of light years away, in a cold white room, a man watched the same news clip on a large screen. He wore a smooth white mask, only his mouth moved, tight and cruel. Behind him stood rows of soldiers, silent, still, armed. She has survived, the masked man said. Another voice replied from the shadows. We underestimated the human. The masked man turned slowly. No, we underestimated the girl. He lifted a gloved hand and pointed to the screen. Bring her back, alive if possible. But if she speaks the old name again, he clenched his fist. Then silence her forever. Back, aboard Elias's ship, Rena sat alone in her small corner bed. She stared at the cloth from the black box, royal blue with golden edges. The sigil of her house stitched into the center. She pressed it against her face, breathing in the scent of memories for the first time since the cage. She allowed herself to remember. She remembered the scent of her mother's hair, the warmth of her arms, the soft lullaby sung in the royal garden. She wasn't a beast. She wasn't a curse. She was someone worth remembering. Dot in the cockpit. Elias gripped the wheel tighter. We can't run forever, he said. Dot Mara leaned forward. So what do we do? Elias looked back toward the engine room, where a little girl with violet eyes had started to remember who she really was. We stop hiding, he said. We go to the archives on Vega 9, the old royal data banks. If she's really the last heir, he paused. Then it's time the galaxy remembered her name. Vega 9 hung in space like a cold gem, glowing blue under a dying sun. Once, it was a royal planet known for its grand libraries, marble towers, and singing winged gardens. Now, it was half dead. Burned archives, fallen domes, and broken data. Towers buried in dust. Elias's ship landed in silence. As the doors opened, wind howled through the ruins. Ash floated through the air like snow. Rena stepped out first. Her long blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, but her eyes were longer wide with fear. She looked ahead, steady, focused. Elias walked beside her. We find the royal archives, he said. If the old systems still work, we can prove who you are. Mara followed close, blaster ready. I've got a bad feeling, she muttered, saying. Elias said, but it's worth a risk. They moved through cracked stone paths and broken staircases. Blackened statues watched from the shadows, and in the center of it all stood the royal vault, a tall door made of gold still untouched. Rena placed her hand on the door. It hissed softly. And opened. Inside, a soft light came on. Rows of holograms blinked to life. Stories of kings and queens danced across the air. Music from a forgotten age echoed faintly through the empty hall. Rena walked through it all slowly, like a ghost returning to her home. She stopped at a pedestal with a glowing screen. Her name, Rena Velsora, appeared, written in a royal script. And then a soft voice spoke from the walls. Welcome, princess. You have returned. Mara's jaw dropped. Elias smiled. It's real, but deep underground, inside the roots of the old palace ruins, something else had awakened. Dark boots stepped out of a hidden dropship, 10 of them, tall, silent, dressed in white armor, their smooth face masks glowing with red lines. The masked ones. The leader raised his hand. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. They moved like shadows, upward, toward the vault. Back in the archive room, Rena stood beside the central data ring, her hand glowing faintly. Images appeared around her parents, their coronation, the star charts of their empire, their laws, their symbol of peace. She turned to Elias. This was who we were. He nodded. It's time the galaxy remembers. Then the lights flickered. A cold wind rushed through the vault. Mara spun around. Something's wrong. Elias drew his blaster. We've got company. And then the door exploded. Smoke poured in. White shapes emerged, masked soldiers, blasters drawn, moving in perfect silence. The leader stepped forward. Rena froze. It was him. The same mask, the same eyes behind it. The one who had ripped her from her bed. The one who had watched them shock her into silence. Her breath caught. The past was standing in front of her. Alive. Elias fired first. The shot bounced off the leader's armor. Move, he yelled, pulling Rena behind a console. Mara unleashed a wave of blaster fire, taking down the soldiers, but the others kept advancing. No panic, no fear, only precision. The leader walked calmly, each step echoing, Rena Velsora. He finally spoke, voice deep and inhuman. You are not a child. You are a symbol, and symbols must be erased. He raised his hand. A pulse of energy shot forward, throwing Elias and Mara across the room. Rena was alone. She stood, shaking, her hands trembled. The leader stepped forward. You were taught to crawl. I remember. She whispered. You were taught to be silent. I remember. You were told you are nothing. I remember everything. Her voice rose, trembling. But you forgot one thing. The leader paused. What? Rena's eyes burned violet. I was born to stand. She lifted her hand. A wave of energy burst from her palm. Not rage, not fire, but light. The soldiers were thrown back. The leader staggered. The archives lit up with golden lines, the royal seal spinning in the air. Elias stared. She has power. Rena stepped forward. I am the daughter of Queen Sorelith. I am not your prisoner anymore, and I will never bow again. The masked soldiers regrouped Dot, but they didn't move, because for the first time, they were afraid. The leader stared at her, silent, then turned Dot and vanished into the shadows with the others. Retreating without another word, Dot's silence returned. Only the hum of the archives remained. Rena collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Elias ran to her side. You okay? She nodded slowly. I think. I remembered who I am. Mara stared at the scorched floor where the soldiers had stood. They're not done, she said. They'll come back. With more. Elias stood tall. They will be ready. As they walked out of the vault, Rena held her head high. The girl who once ate like a dog had just made the enemy run. The ship drifted silently above Vega 9, glowing under the blue light of its fractured moon. Inside, everything had changed. Rena sat near the viewport, watching the stars. Her body was weak, her hands still shook, but her eyes, once full of fear, now held something new. Strength. She had remembered who she was. But that memory came with a cost. Power lived in her veins. Power awakened during the fight in the archives, but she didn't know how to control it. And now, they knew where she was. In the cockpit. Elias stared at the galaxy map. Mars stood beside him, arms crossed. She can't stay on this ship forever, she said. We're being tracked. That last energy burst from her. It lit up the system like a flare. Every bounty hunter, every government drone, every mercenary within 5 sectors. They're coming. I know, Elias said quietly. Mara looked at him. You care about her. He didn't answer, but the silence said it all. Back in the engine bay, Rena pressed the cloth against her heart. The last gift from her mother. She remembered the lullaby. Stars will fall and empires fade, but love shall hold what we can't break. She closed her eyes and whispered the last line. Even in dust, you are still royal. That night, a message came through an old military channel, encrypted, broken signal. But one name came through clearly, General Thalos. Elias froze. Thalos was his former commander, a war hero, and the only person he still trusted in the old Earth fleet. He answered, A tired face appeared, older, wounded, but sharp. Elias, Thalo said. You really did it. Elias nodded. She's real. Her name is Rina Velsora, the last royal. I know. Thalo said, and so do they. Elias leaned in. You can help us? Thalos looked away. There's a safe zone, sector 9K, the moon called Halrose. No scanners, no Dominion presence, but getting there won't be easy. We'll make it. Thalos nodded. There's one more thing you need to know. What? The general's voice dropped. If she claims her name, the galaxy won't go quiet. The old rebels will rise. The Dominion will respond with war, and Earth will be dragged into the middle. He stared straight through the screen. Is she worth that price? Elias looked back at the engine bay, where a small girl had risked everything to say just one thing. I was born to stand. Yes, he whispered. She is. They left Vega 9 before sunrise. The ship flew through dark sectors, past abandoned outposts and frozen ships. Rina stayed silent most of the journey. She was changing, stronger, but still unsure. Die in one moment. She was a child. Die in the next, a queen in waiting. Then it happened. Just before entering the Halrose moon ring, a signal caught them. 5 Dominion. Warships. Tracking them. Fast. No escape routes. Mars shouted. We're boxed in. Send distress to Thalos, Elias ordered. Then prep the escape pod. What? You're not actually. I'm not letting them take her. Rina ran to the cockpit. They're here, aren't they? Elias turned. Yes. Then let me fight. No, he said firmly. You've already done enough. She stepped forward. If I hide, they win again. If I run, they'll hurt someone else. He knelt in front of her, placing his hand on her shoulder. Listen to me. Sometimes being strong means surviving, not fighting. But you don't have to prove anything anymore. Not to me, not to anyone. Tears welled in her eyes. Why are you doing this for me? Elias smiled softly. Because someone once did it for me. The warships closed in. Red lights lit the sky. Mara prepared the escape pod. Elias set the course, straight for Halrose, fast and low. Then he loaded the pod, placed Rina inside. She clutched his jacket. Don't go. I have to. You. Promise I was safe. You are. He tucked the cloth into her hand, the one from her mother. Your name matters, but so does your life. He kissed her forehead and closed the hatch. Seconds later, the pod launched, fast and hidden under a decoy burst. The Dominion didn't notice. They locked onto Elias's ship instead. As they fired warning shots. Elias leaned back in the pilot's chair. Mara stared at him. You're crazy. You know that. Just loyal. They smiled once. Then the first blast hit the hull. The ship shook. The second hit. Systems failing. Elias stared into the stars and whispered, Run. Rina, remember who you are. Far away, the escape pod landed on how Ros. Safe. Her iron yaw crawled out, shaking above her. The stars burned. She looked up. One light, one ship, vanished in the distance, gone. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't cry out. She stood, alone now, but no longer afraid. She was not a lost girl anymore. She was not a creature in a cage. She was not someone to be erased. She was Rena Velsora, and she would make them remember her name, even if it cost everything. The surface of Howrow's moon was quiet. Silver dust blew softly across the plains. The wind whispered through crystal caves, and above, the stars blinked like ancient watchers. And in the middle of that silence stood a girl, Rena Velsora. She was small, tired, alone, but not broken. Her feet were bare. Her eyes carried the weight of galaxies. She clutched the royal cloth against her chest, the only thing left of her mother, her name, and the man who saved her Elias gone his ship, his voice, his warmth, all lost in the fire of sacrifice. She had begged him not to leave, but now she understood why he did. He believed in her. Even when she did in single quotes T-dot deep beneath the caves of Howrow's was an old rebel base, long abandoned, full of dust, broken transmitters, and half-dead batteries. But one beacon still flickered red. Rena climbed down the rocks carefully, her breath short. She reached the console it powered on. Slow and weak, she sat in front of it, closed her eyes, and whispered to those who still remember the stars, "I am not a ghost. I am not forgotten. My name is Rena Velsora, daughter of Queen Cerelith. The royal line is not dead, and I will not run anymore." She pressed send. The signal went out. Into space. Into silence. 3 days passed. No ships came. No. Voices answered. Only wind, dust, and dreams. But on the 4th day, a sound broke the air. Engines. Fast. Low. Rena stood up. At first, she feared it was Dominion soldiers again. But the ship was small, old, and blue. The Earth fleet. A hatch opened. Out stepped General Thalos, old and scarred, but eyes burning with purpose. Behind him, soldiers, engineers, even a medic. Thalos walked forward. "Princess," he said softly, "we received your call." Rena nodded. "I wasn't sure anyone would listen. We almost didn't," he said, "until we heard your name." He knelt and bowed behind him. The others followed, one by one, kneeling to a girl covered in dust, standing barefoot on a dead moon. But in that moment, she was royalty. Back on the ship, Rena sat in the medical bay. A nurse cleaned her wounds, gave her water, offered her shoes. She refused the shoes. "I want to feel the ground," she said. "Why?" the nurse asked gently. "Because where I walk now will become history." In the command room, Thalos called her over. "We have your records now, from the Vega archives. You are who you say you are." Rena nodded. "There's more," Thalos said. "Your mother's last directive, encoded in your bloodline. A map, a message," and he paused. "A will." Rena looked at the screen. A hologram of her mother appeared, her voice soft and regal. "To my daughter, if you live, then hope lives. Do not rebuild the old throne. Build something better, not ruled by fear, but by love. Your voice can end the silence, and your light will guide the lost." The message ended. Rena was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. "Take me to the council." Word spread fast. A royal heir had survived. The last daughter of the Underline was alive. Systems across the edge of the galaxy buzzed with messages. Some rejoiced, some prepared for war, and some watched in silence. But none could ignore her now. On the floor of the Galactic Council, Where kings and warlords had once debated peace and conquest, Rena stood alone. She wore no crown, no armor dot, just a soft blue cloak and the courage of 1,000. Silent voices dot representatives from Earth, Mars, Vulture, Direct Prime, all watched. Some whispered, some laughed, a few listened. She raised her voice, and the room fell still. I was raised in a cage. They made me crawl. They told me I was a beast. But I remembered something they couldn't erase. My name, my light. And now I remember who I am. Not just a princess, a survivor, a girl who chose to stand. I don't want war. I don't want thrones. I want justice for those forgotten, for every cage, every orphan, every name that was stolen. Her hands trembled, but her voice never broke. We don't need more rulers. We need more protectors. I offer not a crown, but a promise. Let the stars be ours again. Let no child live in fear. Let the galaxies remember that light always returns. And in that room, for the first time in years, there was no anger dot, no shouting dot, just silence. And then one clap, then the dot, then a thunder of applause. From every corner, from every system, even the ones who doubted her, because in that moment, they didn't see a child. They didn't see an alien. They saw a spark. Later that night, alone on the viewing deck of the Earth Council ship, Rena stood looking out into space. Mara walked up beside her. You did it. Rena smiled faintly. Not yet. You will. Mara said. He'd be proud. Rena's eyes filled with tears. I miss him. I know. She opened her palm. Inside it, a small, glowing crystal. The one from Elias's ship. She held it close and whispered, You said I was more than a name. You gave me the sky, and I promise, Elias, I'll make it beautiful, somewhere in the stars. A new story was being written. Not about war. Not about kings, but about a girl who once ate scraps like a dog and rose to become the voice of the forgotten. The last royal. The first light. The girl who was a star.